So I think then let's go ahead. So we'll be talking about some interesting aspects today. Right? So we'll be talking about your debugging. Right? So let us talk about this. So few of which, yes, you might have already aware of, but still let us have a look at the various debugging tools that you come across in PEGA. And we'll also talk about few tools that are part of your application performance. Obviously, I think the first one that comes on the list is your clipboard, right? So we know that this clipboard is a part of PEGA where you can see all the data corresponding to each of your properties, right? So you get to see the data in the form of name value pairs here, right? You see the name of the entity, you get to see the value corresponding to it. These entities, we know they are listed out in the form of pages, or they are organized in the form of pages, correct? So what all pages you see on the clipboard is 4 types of pages: user, data, linked property pages, and system pages. Okay. So according to the type of entities you are looking at, you choose the right page here and you can see the data corresponding to it, right? And as developers, we would be very frequently working on the clipboard pages in order to look after your data manipulations. And is your business logic correctly working out or not? Is the data being mapped to a particular property or not? So all these things you can check across the clipboard. Right? So where do you access the clipboard from? Obviously from the developer toolbar. Just run the transaction. Right. So where do I access the clipboard from? Yes, from the developer toolbar on the bottom. So yes, I get to see it is respective for each thread. So I can see the clipboard instance for each case instance that we create. And I see user, data, linked property, and system pages. So all the data related to the user interactions would be available under the user pages category. And this is where you have the very important PY work page, right, to show you the case level details. PY work page will always be of the type of your case instance. Right? Currently it is work-recruitment. So if you run another case for work-onboarding, so my PY work page will represent work-onboarding. Okay, and I get to see my values here. So along with the user-defined values, a lot of system-provided ones are also available: PX, PY, and PZ related entities. Okay, of which PY ones are, you can manipulate them, you can change the values accordingly, whereas PX and PZ are, you can access them, but it is suggested you do not change them. In fact, you don't get an option to change as well, right? You cannot directly make any changes to PX or PY related entities or PZ related entities directly. Right. Now, if your values are just single valued properties, you can have them directly on the PY work page. Okay? But what if you are dealing with embedded entities? I mean, your page list properties or page group. Those would be available inside the PY workpage. So you will have them inside PY workpage on the clipboard. I think it's just a basic thing, but just doing a recap most. Now the second category is going to be your data pages. Okay. This holds data that is part of your data pages. So if you're dealing with any external system of records, you're trying to retrieve some data from other external sources. Right? So those would be part of your data pages category. Okay. So most of your read-only information, you can say. Okay. So those would be part of your data pages category. And yes, here is where you can see according to the scope of your D page, whichever scope you're going to use, thread, requester, or node. The thread corresponds to individual case instances, whereas requester corresponds to the operator level, whereas node corresponds to all the operators on the application. So depending upon the configuration of your D pages, you can expect your D page on the respective scope, thread, requester, or node. Okay. And then we have linked property pages, which are specific to linked properties. Okay, where you can have a property to refer other instances, or when you have to, refer data objects in some properties. So that's where you use these linked property pages. Right? Whereas the last one, system pages, is going to give information regarding the operator profile. So you can see the data related to the application, the access groups, then your organization division units. So it's all about the system level details are part of your system pages category. Okay. And obviously I can see these details on the clipboard, and which is more of a static approach, isn't it? You manipulate some data, you see it on the clipboard. Good. But can I know whether a rule is successfully executed or not? Or what is the execution resulted in? Or how much time did it take? So can I see those details on the clipboard?
No.
It is only until data level I can see whether the property is correctly mapped or not, right? Is it displaying the right value? Is it manipulated correctly? So I can see those things using the clipboard. But what I cannot do is I cannot understand the dynamics of the application. I cannot see what rule is executed or what went wrong or where it went wrong. So I cannot see those details using the clipboard, because this is more of a static kind of a tool. So what we use instead is, in order for you to understand rule level execution details and all, use something called as a tracer. Okay. So tracer would give you details regarding every event that happens in your application. Okay. Events are listed out, the order of the execution, and accordingly you can see the status of it. I mean, what is the status of that rule execution? How much time did it take? And along with that, you can also see the data as well. So the tracer gives you detailing regarding what went wrong, what is successful, what did not execute successfully. So you get to see those things on the tracer. Right? So let's see how this tracer is going to work. Let me just go back once. So let me launch the tracer. So we'll be talking about a lot of advantages that come with the tracer. But on the other hand, we also have certain limitations here. Okay? So this tracer is a very resource intensive tool. It is very resource intensive. It gathers a lot of information for this tracer to be executed correctly. And that is why we do not have this tracer running for the entire case instance. We wouldn't do it. It's not like I start the tracer, I run the entire case instance. No, we wouldn't do that. Instead, we will try to divide the transaction, or as a developer, we might even have a hint as in what might go wrong. Okay, what might go wrong, a little hunch. And only at those specific points, we tend to use the tracer, right? But not for the entire case instance. Why not? We'll see. So currently it says it is tracing. Okay, so let me go back and I'm going to create a case instance. So the tracing has already started and it has already resulted in like already 900 events were logged even before the first screen turned up. Right? So there are around already 1800 events logged even before the first screen showed up. Right. So by the time my first screen just showed up, I've got around 2600 events already, which means, I mean, all of these are the rules that are executed in the backend. So once I advance this, for each screen that you move forward, so all those rules that you have configured and all those rules part of the platform, all of those are executed and you get to see the event. Okay, so you see the event, you see the status corresponding to it. What is the status? Is it good? Is it fail? Then what is the type of the event? Okay, I mean, what kind of rule is it? Is it a when rule? Is it an activity? So you get to see all those things. The time taken, the unique identifier, the rule set. You get to see all these details for each of the event that is executed. Okay. Now I see most of them are part of PEGA OOTB rule sets. So now, yes, the tracer is tracing in, and what is happening here in the backend, I still see the next screen isn't loaded yet. Right? So when I say tracer is a resource intensive tool, it has to gather a lot of information for every event, and definitely that impacts your application's performance. Right? So that is, let me open. Yes, so by the time my screen has just popped up like this, I already had around, I am assuming around like 10,000 events already. Yes. Okay, so let me do one thing. I'll just pause the tracer. Okay, and I would like to go into the settings. So now instead of tracing each and every kind of rule, so I will choose what is required. Probably my implementation or probably my error could be on a particular rule form. Okay, so I'll make sure only that is selected. Rest all I don't need to trace them. Okay? So you are trying to just declutter your tracer. Okay, so let me just show you. So what all tracer settings you can do. What all do you want to trace? So these are your events. You want to trace all the activities and the steps. Each step on the activity can be traced, and each action on a data transform can be traced. Right? And you can also select what all events you wanted to trace here. Maybe I'll give a case type. Then this depends upon the kind of issue you are trying to deal with. Okay, maybe I'll give a flow. Then here comes your rule sets. So do I need to trace all these rule sets? Not essential. Instead, I will go for my operator specific one and maybe just the application specific rule set. Okay, so this kind of filters the events. Okay, let us see. I'm going to... Okay, now let me just clear this and I'm going to play. So this time, let's see what happens. Okay, now I see this is a lot more faster this time, and I get to see only 126 events by the time this particular screen has turned up. Okay, so you get to see the events, and here you see most of them are related to your rule set alone, the HRS part. So let's see. It is okay. Let me just randomly open any of our. Let me open this. Collect candidate details. Okay. I'm pointing onto this, and let me see what do I have in it. So far the execution status said everything is good. Nothing failed. Everything seems good. And we can also see different color codes here, right? Most of it is orange. So the color code also represents the type of print that you are looking at. Okay. Before that, I've double clicked on one of the events for a flow, okay, where you get to see all the details corresponding to it, which rule set it is part of, what version is it, what is the type of the event, it is a flow, okay, what is the name of it, collect candidate details, okay. Then we can also see a lot of other details on my PY work page. Let me click this. So this PY work page again looks similar, right? So for each event, you would be able to see the data with your clipboard instance. Still opening. So once I open this PY work page, close and open this again. Let me just pause the tracing. So once you start using the tracer, So definitely your application would slow down. So that's a definite limitation that you have when better. So okay, all right. So here I see my PY work page corresponding to the event, and you see all the details here, right? So again, a lot of OOTB related ones are there, and my system related entities are there, and the ones that we have created, so they are also available. So your case ID R10005, then your organization division units, then you get to see the entire stage history, so which stage you have completed and which stage you are currently in. So you finished the create stage, which has got a process. So these are all the PY work page instances. Yeah. So your create stage, which has got a create flow, which has got an assignment called create, right? And then the second stage is going to be your submission stage, which has got collect candidate details, and you're currently on the step get personal info, right? So you see the, let me just close. So you see you are on the get personal info screen, right? So you get to see the entire stage history, then a lot of other things, also the flow related details. Then if at all you have some embedded properties, you get to see the values corresponding to it. So this is more like again your clipboard, but for each event you will get to see this. So imagine how much data does your tracer require in order to show this, in detailed aspects. So that's why we always say that do not use the tracer as and when it is required. Okay, don't use it throughout the transaction. Instead, use it as and when it is required only. And the thing is, you can also see a set of color coding here. So if at all there are gray colored aspects, they are related to activities. If it is orange, they are related to your regular PEGA rules, like your data transforms, case types, flows, declarative decision rules, and all. When it is light blue, it represents the DB related operations. The queries or anything related to the DB would be listed out in light blue. This color coding is also, sort of an advantageous thing. So you don't need to look at each of the event. Instead, you can just go with the color coding options. Yeah, so I think that's all about the tracer. And one more important thing on the tracer is remote tracer. Okay, so I think I'll show that as well. So remote tracer PEGA, with that you will be able to trace other events as well. Probably another person is working on the same environment, and if you would like to trace his events, yes, you can do that using the remote tracer. So that is also available here. So here is your remote tracer. Right. So once I click on the remote tracer, you get to select which operator are you going to trace. So this will allow you, all the operators available on that specific node of the application, you can access them. Right? So currently there's only one admin, rest all are your, the batch related ones and all. Okay, but otherwise, if you have more operators working on this, yes, you can trace them. So, right, when you don't need to go to the system to look what went wrong and all. So remotely also you can start tracing it. So they can run the transaction and you can trace it from your system. Okay, so this is option that we have when you are
So, do remote tracer works on different browsers also? I mean, if the person who is doing a remote trace is on a say different browser and
yes, yes. So browser, so most of the times, so browser is they're not browser specific. So yes, it works.
okay. And
So this
what about the breakpoint and watch? Watch, I mean, I am aware. Breakpoint,
right. So in Java, you are aware of this, right? Where you can set some breakpoints for debugging. So which means
yeah.
it would be executed normally, but at breakpoint you can give it a halt and then you can continue. Similarly, here also you can set some breakpoints for the tracing. Until that point, it will be executed. But when you give these breakpoints, let me just show this. So at that point, your execution will halt, and it will only proceed after I mean, after like any action that you take, only after that your thing would proceed. Okay, let us just wait. So once you start using the tracer, the system becomes a lot more less responsive. Right. So here, yes, these are your breakpoints, and this is specific to your activities itself. So you can select which class, you can select the scope of it, you can select the activity, and where do you want to break it. So this is more like you would be able to pause the execution. You can break it for some time and then you can proceed. I don't think we have any activities on this yet. In fact, if you want it to be broken for all the steps, you can do that also.
And what is the purpose for it? I mean, I'll break it, but it gives a more clear idea
Right. It's
on.
like more granular, level of tracing. It's like you're able to trace each of the steps, each what do you say? Yes, each step on the activity can be traced. I mean, why importance for the activity is because that rule is what you will use for most of the DB related operations, right? So if you want
Yes.
to any specific or you want to achieve some granular level control of debugging, that's when we go for setting these breakpoints.
Okay.
On the tracer level, it's event by event basis. But within that also, if you want to see the execution status of each specific step and all, you want to understand what is happening inside, we tend to use these breakpoints. See, you see an option called where to break. There's all steps are there, or you can mention the step number. So this depends upon the activity that we are dealing with, right?
Yes.
Specific to activities. If we would like to mention, yes, it is specific to activity. Okay, right. So I think yes, that's all about the tracer. So which is more of a dynamic debugging tool when compared with your clipboard,
Clipboard.
which which is more of a static